Group Pet+Double A+paranoia+Shuangwen+Chasing Sisters Crematorium. In the group Pet article, Nan Qiao is a female supporting character who has been stripped of the lead's aura, and is despised by her father, 3 brothers, grandparents, and friends. My father wants to break away from her relationship, and my 3 brothers favor my stepsister. My grandparents, who prioritize sons over daughters, also favor my stepmother's daughter. My fiancé A said, "Don't stick to it, the person I love is Gigi." Father. Nan Qiao, can you stop playing around? Your sister is your life-saving benefactor. Big brother. Nan Qiao, I'm too disappointed with you. Second brother. You actually started hitting your younger sister. Don't you know that her body is weak and can't withstand turmoil? Third brother. I didn't expect you to be so ruthless. Grandparents. Let her get out of here. Our Nan family doesn't have such unscrupulous descendants. Rebirth. Once, Nan Qiao suddenly realized that since you all dislike me for abandoning me, I will not want you for now. Turning his head, he inherited billions of assets from his grandfather and was doted upon by his 7 older brothers. Boss Ba, top-tier second brother, professor third brother. Brothers are crazily vying for favor. Just as Nan Qiao was thriving, he was also targeted by the top villain boss in the original text. Hui Chen pinched Nan Qiao's chin, his narrow and deep eyes narrowed slightly, his gaze tinged with coldness and fatigue. Why, if you tease me and don't take responsibility, you want to run away? Just as Nan Qiao thought everything was over, her family members were reborn and remembered the memories of their previous lives just like her. Her family, who had abused her thousands of times, begged her to go home with red eyes and crazy expressions. Sorry, Qiao Qiao, I was wrong. Keywords of the novel. After a spoiled female supporting character was taken offline, all 10 brothers went crazy without a pop-up window. After a spoiled female supporting character was taken offline, all 10 brothers went crazy. Download the complete text. After a spoiled female supporting character was taken offline, all 10 brothers went crazy. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Don't move her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Don't move her. Fiancé A, Nan Qiao, if you still want face, don't stick to it. The person I love is Gigi. Anyway, they are all engaged to the Nanzhi family. As long as you don't say it, no one will know about changing people. Father. Nan Qiao, can you stop playing around? If it weren't for your sister, you would have died long ago. Are you treating your life-saving benefactor like this now? Big brother. Nan Qiao, I am too disappointed with you. You were not like this before, and now you are no longer the sister I know. Second brother. Nan Qiao, you actually started hitting your younger sister. Don't you know that your younger sister's body is weak and can't withstand turmoil? Third brother. I didn't expect you to be so ruthless. In the future, I will consider you as my sister. Grandparents. Let her get out of here. Our Nan family doesn't have such unscrupulous descendants. Her ears were filled with harsh accusations and criticisms, tormenting her to the point of excruciating pain. It's not like this, it's not like this. Why? Why do they all believe only one side of Nanzhi's words? Ah. Nan Qiao suddenly woke up from bed, sweating profusely, her lips slightly turning white, panting heavily, and her chest heaving violently. Sweat dripped down the smooth jawline onto the blanket, and the overwhelming despair almost engulfed her. In an unfamiliar and familiar environment, Nan Qiao held on to the bedding tightly and looked back with a gloomy expression. The calendar on the table was dated May 13, XX04, which was a week after the incident between her and Nanzhi. She's reborn. The world she is in is a book, and everything has already been written. Unfortunately, she is not the lead actress, just a small supporting actress. She has been the darling of heaven since birth, with countless favors in her body. Her 3 brothers vied for favor, becoming the treasure in the hands of her parents. However, all of this came to an end with her mother's passing. After losing his mother, his father took him back from the outer room where he had been secretly raising him, and he also had a daughter, Nanzhi, who was only half a year younger than her. Nanzhi is the female protagonist in the book. She is gentle, beautiful, knowledgeable, and well-behaved, and is loved by many people. As soon as she appears, she quickly attracts the attention of several older brothers. Even her grandparents, who always prioritized sons over daughters, like her very much, and everyone talks to her. And the thing that truly made everyone change their attitude, like Nanzhi but dislike her, was the flower pot that the school teaching building smashed into her head a week ago. At that time, Nanzhi pounced on her and saved her life, but Nanzhi was hit and broke her leg, sitting in a wheelchair for a year. After this incident, Nanzhi won the pity of the whole family, and her nightmare began from then on. No matter what happens, everyone always turns to Nanzhi. Whatever she likes, Nanzhi likes everything, including her fiancé A. They always say, "Give it to Nanzhi, this is what you owe her, let yourself not be petty." Until her father tricked her into transferring all her shares to Nanzhi, and then kicked her out of the house. Even so, Nanzhi still didn't let her go and even found someone to defile her. In despair, she fought to the death against those thugs and was ultimately beaten to death. Nan Qiao tightly hugged her slender body, curled up in a corner, her heart already covered in frost, and she trembled with cold. In her previous life, her family's disdain and words still lingered in her ears, tormenting her countless days and nights. The crimson eyes were filled with despair and darkness. A low, crying nasal voice murmured, "This time, it's me who doesn't want you all." After an unknown amount of time, a sound suddenly sounded outside the room. Nan Qiao hasn't woken up yet. It's time for breakfast. Stepmother He Qian didn't knock on the door and pushed it in. Get out. Nan Qiao suddenly snapped out. He Qian was frightened and slightly stunned. After calming down, she slightly blamed and spoke in a tone that was not kind. What's wrong with you, child? Why did you lose your temper early in the morning? Nan Qiao clenched his fist, grabbed the nearby powder box, and smashed it over. I asked you to go out, didn't you hear me? He Qian was so scared that she took 3 steps back and stood at the door, afraid to speak. Suddenly she saw a man walking beside her, and He Qian restrained her facial expression, adding a hint of grievance and straightened her waist. Joe, I know you've never really liked me, but I've been married to this family for 10 years now, and there's no credit or hard work. What's wrong with Aunt He? A deep and strong male voice came in. He Qian seemed to have just discovered him, somewhat surprised, and then smiled bitterly, saying, Qian, why are you here? It's nothing, I'm just here to ask Nan Qiao to come downstairs for breakfast. What are you doing early in the morning? Big brother Nan Qian walked slowly, wearing a black and gold velvet nightgown, rubbing his head, as if he had just come back from a run and taken a shower. After several rooms, I heard your angry voice and learned how to smash things. You are becoming more and more capable now. Gigi is still in the ICU, and she exchanged her own life for yours. Is that what you did to her mother? As soon as Nan Qiao saw her elder brother, her eyes turned red and she remembered everything before her rebirth. Nanzhi was the murderer who killed her, and her elder brother was the accomplice who handed Nanzhi a knife. The girl had red eyes, but her gaze became even more fierce, staring at him like an ice blade. You go out too. He Qian let out a small gasp of surprise on the side. Nan Qiao used to be rebellious, at most disobeying her father and obedient to her brothers, but now she actually contradicts her older brother. Nan Qiao. Who are you talking to? Big brother Nan Qian pulled off the towel on his head and angrily said. Nan Qiao held back her tears, not wanting to lose her momentum. Her round eyes glared at him with hatred and anger. I know, Nanzhi's good brother, Nan Qian. Nan Qian raised his hand and slapped Nan Qiao in the face. Nan Qiao heard the wind blowing in her ear and stared at Nan Qian without blinking. She needs to see clearly how her good brother, who has been protecting her since childhood, cruelly interrupted their sibling relationship. This slap finally stopped just 3 inches away from Nan Qiao's face. "What are you blocking me for, Nan Jin? If you don't teach her a good lesson today, she will turn the tables." Nan Qian's anger surged in his heart, and his veins on the back of his hand were bulging. Nan Qiao saw that the person coming was Nan Jin, her second brother. She clenched her fists even tighter, and her nails were almost embedded in the flesh and blood of her palms. The pain in her heart was so overwhelming that she was almost unable to breathe. She obediently closed her eyes. Second brother has always been at odds with her, and if big brother wants to beat her up, second brother is definitely someone who claps his hands and praises her. Now he's blocking him, probably trying to say, "Let him come." After this slap, she didn't owe them anything anymore. The slightly wheat-skinned arm in front of him squeezed Nanchuan's hand with extra force. "Don't touch her." Nan Qiao quickly opened her eyes and looked at her second brother Nanjin in surprise, with a slight frown. Second brother. Nanjin seemed to have stayed up all night, with thick black circles under his eyes and long hair that had not been straightened. It fell messy around his eyebrows and eyes, his lips tight, his chin cold, and his forehead slightly moving. "I told you, don't touch her," he said. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Dizzing Father. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Dizzing Father. The second brother's voice was suppressed severely, as if he was biting his back teeth and saying something. His eyes were covered by long hair, and he was unkempt, as if he had been tormented all night. Although Nan Qiao was shocked, her eyes drooped with a chill. Although she didn't know why second brother would help her today, she knew that the sister she liked the most in second brother's heart would always be Nanzhi. Under the pressure of my second brother Nanjin, the older brother finally gave up. However, as he was about to leave, he even gave Nan Qiao a glare and said, "This weekend, you must go to the hospital to take care of my little sister Ji, otherwise." Big brother has not finished his remaining words, but the threat is full. While having breakfast, Nan Qiao suddenly received a phone call from her father Nan Kong. Just when I answered the phone, all I had to do was scold. "Nan Qiao, you are really heartless. After your sister was injured, you never went to see her again. What do you look like? Your sister woke up this morning and still cared about you. You must go to the hospital today and apologize to her properly. Otherwise, how can I deal with you when I go home?" Nan Qiao walked down the hallway of the hospital holding the fish soup given by He Qian, feeling as cold as a gust of wind blowing through her heart. She pursed her lips and walked to the door of the hospital room. When she heard laughter coming from inside, Nan Qiao stopped and stood at the door in a daze. "Don't worry, my dad will definitely find the best doctor for you. Even if he puts in the effort of the whole family, he will help you take care of your legs." "Thank you, Dad." Nanzhi showed a gentle smile and stroked the broken hair in her ear. Her face only had a proper smile, without any signs of concern for her legs. Nanzhi is bound to a system space, and as long as certain necessary conditions are met, it can be exchanged for a wish. She is not worried about her legs at all, which is already in her calculations. As long as the time is right, she will exchange with the system to make her legs better. However, as of now, all her sacrifices are worth it. After saving Nan Qiao, everyone's attitude towards her has indeed changed greatly. Soon, she will be able to completely replace Nan Qiao's position and then drive her out. Nan Kong hugged Nanzhi and patted her back with heartache and comfort, but couldn't see the expression on Nanzhi's face that was about to win. Unfortunately, Nan Qiao saw it outside the door and it was clear that the conspiracy had succeeded. If it weren't for living a lifetime and realizing that she was just a supporting actress, Nan Qiao wouldn't have suspected that the flower pot that fell from the teaching building was actually related to Nanzhi. In the previous life, everyone only regarded this matter as an accident, so they didn't investigate it too much. From the beginning, Nanzhi wanted to take everything from her, and it was ridiculous that she had been so foolish in her previous life that she felt guilty and forgave. "Dad, why didn't sister come to see me? Did sister get angry with me? Did Gigi do something wrong again that made sister angry?" Nanzhi tilted her head and pondered seriously, her little mouth slightly pouted out, like an innocent little girl. "Your sister." Before Nan Qiao could finish speaking, Nan Qiao knocked on the door, indicating that their father and daughter should be separated. Nan Qiao turned around and saw Nan Qiao, frowning slightly without saying anything. But Nanzhi pretended to be hypocritical. "Sister, how are you doing? Did you fall when I knocked you down? Did it hurt?" That expression can be said to be sincere and sincere, without any element of acting. No wonder she deceived her in her previous life. Nan Qiao's eyes sank. Nan Qiao had suppressed his anger, but at this moment, when Nanzhi spoke, his anger rose again. What kind of injury can she have? A sister who wants her sister's protection on the other hand, and even causes you to break your leg, she sleeps until the sun rises. When my younger sister had an accident, my father was always attentive and personally took care of everything. My daughter has never felt it before. Nan Qiao's tone was calm and emotionless. Before, when she was sick, her father would always say he was busy, either throwing her to the nanny or to his brothers, but he had never seen her rush back to accompany her. On the other hand, every time Nanzhi fell ill, her father always rushed back as soon as possible. Previously, she thought her father was busy and didn't want to cause trouble, but now she realizes how outrageous her mistake was. Some things are not impossible, they are just unwilling. What's your attitude? If it weren't for your sister today, the person lying here would be you. Nan Qiao sternly accused Nan Qiao. Nan Qiao placed the thermos bucket in her hand on the table and turned around with a hint of coldness in her eyes. I didn't beg her to save me, wasn't I your daughter? How do you know that I don't want the person lying in bed now to be me? Being accused like this, Nan Qiao would rather be hurt by her. You are also my daughter, how have you become like this now? Look at your sister, look at you again. Your words are too extreme. Your sister sacrificed 2 legs to save you. Did she save you wrong? What does it mean to be the daughter of the same father? She's just a drag on the cake brought by He Qian. How can she be the daughter of the father? Or is it that you had an affair while my mother was still alive? Nanzhi is your biological daughter. Perhaps this statement intimidated Nan Qiao, who was not only shocked but also felt a sense of guilt that had been exposed. He was angry and panicked, and raised his hand to hit Nan Qiao. He Qian had been watching a play at the door for a long time. At this moment, she immediately rushed into the ward and pretended to stop Nan Qiao. He Qian shouted loudly, even if it's her fault, you can't hit the child. She is my sister's daughter, the eldest lady of our southern family. What if she breaks it? Nan Qiao was so angry that he sat on the edge of the hospital bed and pointed at Nan Qiao, cursing, my Nanjia family can be considered a scholarly family. How could I have taught you such an disrespectful and unfilial daughter? Surprisingly, you still call your elders names directly. Look at how your mother treats you, you wicked and ruthless thing. Nan Qiao couldn't bear it anymore and knocked over the fish soup in his hand. His eyes turned slightly red, and his nails were almost embedded in the flesh. He also means to say that he is from a scholarly family. Nan Qiao originally came from a humble family background and achieved some success through his own efforts. However, compared to the wealthy Murong family, he couldn't even reach his fingertips. How could it be that Murong Yen had fallen in love with such a poor boy back then, and insisted on marrying Nan Qiao for his disobedience to his father? In the end, she ended up dying at a young age. If it weren't for your mother blocking me just now and watching me kill you. I must teach you a lesson today, this ungrateful little beast. Nan Qiao rolled up his sleeves and slapped him. Nan Qiao refused to stand and let him fight, quickly avoiding. Nan Qiao's slap hit the wall, causing him to exhale in pain. And the expression on He Qian's face as she watched the play was confiscated. Nan Qiao was extremely disappointed and her voice sank to the bottom. If my mother were still here, she would have pounced on me just now instead of stirring up trouble on the side. The expression on He Qian's face instantly froze, giving her a feeling of being seen by others. You. Nan Kong covered his heart and couldn't catch his breath. He pointed at Nan Qiao with one finger, his eyes almost popping out. Gigi, quickly call a doctor. He Qian exclaimed in fear. Dad, what's wrong with you? Nan Qiao frowned and walked out of the ward. You're so good at acting, but I never saw you bring back a little golden man. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Being slapped hard by father. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Being slapped hard by father. Nan Qiao walked leisurely on the corridor, the mist in his eyes almost making it difficult to see the way. Entering the elevator, watching the elevator wall reflect my current appearance. She wiped away her tears, her heart becoming increasingly cold. What's the use of crying? Who is she crying for? She will never cry again in the future. Looking up in a daze, she glanced lightly at the moment when the elevator door was about to close, but was shocked and unable to concentrate for a long time. Just now, she only saw the man's profile and remembered it deeply with just one glance. A tall and straight nose bridge, half-closed deep eyebrows and eyes, slightly pursed thin lips, exuding a hint of coldness, that noble appearance seemed to be engraved in Nan Qiao's mind. She knows that person, the world's largest villain boss, Hui Chen. The female protagonist, who was praised by the crowd, had no regard for Hui Chen at all. She only regarded him as an inconspicuous poor boy, and did not neglect to trample on Hui Chen during his youth. Even because of Nanzhi, I didn't even see my mother's last face. Later on, when Hui Chen grew up, the first person he wanted to retaliate against was Nanzhi and her husband's family who had suppressed her. He had been tormenting Nanzhi with such ruthless methods. In just an instant, a crazy plan came to Nan Qiao's mind. Perhaps this was an opportunity. Hui Chen's mother's health was always poor, but she didn't expect that since they were in the same hospital as Nanzhi, perhaps they could work together to retaliate and attack the Nanzhi. After leaving the hospital, Nan Qiao's phone rang and she was a little stunned when she saw the caller ID. The caller is Nan Qiao's current sisters. As soon as I answered the phone, a sweet and winding voice came through. Nan Qiao, is your sister okay? I heard you didn't even go to see her. At least it's because you were injured. This time, you really shouldn't treat Nanzhi like that. I thought it would be a relief to receive a call from my good sisters, but I didn't want to ask Nanzhi the first thing, and then blamed myself. Nan Qiao's heart fell to the bottom again. Is that all you're saying on the phone? Nan Qiao's voice gradually became cold. On the side of Nan Qiao School, things are fermenting very seriously. The whole school is spreading rumors that you pulled Nanzhi over as a meat mat. Now everyone has a big opinion of you, even. She said in a curved tone, half finished, a bit hesitant to continue, feeling that Nan Qiao's tone was not very good just now. Say it, Nan Qiao's thin lips tugged. Everyone has already started to boycott you, and parents and students are jointly demanding your dismissal, he said nervously. There was no sound coming from the phone for a long time, and she exclaimed with uncertainty, Nan Qiao. Got it. Nan Qiao remained silent for a long time and hung up the phone without even giving any explanation. I feel that Nan Qiao is very strange today, but I can't say exactly what's wrong. She thought that if she told Nan Qiao like this, she wouldn't come back to school, but what she didn't expect was that Nan Qiao would come to school the next morning with a swagger. Not only did Nan Qiao come, but she was also late, in front of all the teachers and students in the school. Look, isn't that Nan Qiao from class 3? She still has the face to come to school. I heard she broke her sister's leg. Everyone stay away from her. What if she uses you as a shield? Her ears were filled with such voices, and many students were discussing, their eyes fixed on her as if they were looking at the plague god. Nan Qiao really finds it ironic. Classmate, how could you be late for the morning meeting? You'll be punished to stand in the corner and listen, and then let your homeroom teacher handle you after it's over. Nan Qiao ignored the director's words and walked straight towards the high platform. During the morning meeting every day, the leader would speak with a microphone on the high platform. Nan Qiao walked up to the director and snatched the microphone from his hand. Falsifying facts and slandering others is a criminal responsibility, so do you have evidence to prove that I did it? Nan Qiao stood upright, with a loud voice, facing thousands of people below without any fear. At that time, there were only the two of you. Who else was there besides you? Nan Qiao sneered, "Oh, how did you know that the flower pot must be facing me? How did you know that it wasn't her who implicated me?" The classmates in the audience were scolded and speechless. After all, they have also heard about it, and when they hear about being criminally responsible, everyone is afraid. But at this moment, the teaching director was furious and wanted to snatch the microphone from Nan Qiao's hand. The two of them had a dispute and the microphone made a piercing sound. Nan Qiao remained steadfast and scolded the head teacher anxiously, "You are simply disrespectful and disrespectful. Call your parents over to me." Nan Qiao waved away the teaching director's hand and stared at him with fiery eyes. As a teacher, not only did you not protect your students, but you also allowed other students to spread rumors and slander another student. Is this just being a role model? Several teachers went up on stage, and then Nan Qiao was dragged down. The microphone in his hand was also snatched away, and everyone could no longer hear what they were saying. Nan Qiao stood in the office of the head teacher, accepting the punishment while cursing and waiting for his parents to come. Nan Kong rushed over, without saying a word, and slapped Nan Qiao in the face, echoing throughout the entire office. Nan Qiao only felt a burning pain in her cheeks and a slight smell of blood in her mouth. Nan Qiao had a face on the back after being beaten and remained motionless. As he looked up, there was only a cold hatred in his eyes. This move surprised all the teachers in the office. Not a single parent would hit their child as soon as they entered. Even if there is something wrong with the child, Mr. Nan, you cannot physically hit the child, the director insincerely advised. This rebellious girl is completely lawless. At home, she is also ungrateful to her younger sister, and she is cruel, disobedient, and unfilial to her mother. If I don't hit her, she doesn't know what's good or bad. Mr. Nan, calm down. Actually, I came to see you today. The director pulled Nan Kong aside and explained in detail. Nan Qiao suddenly chuckled at the corner of his mouth. He had already anticipated the outcome, and clearly had no expectations in his heart. Why was he slapped so hard, but his heart still hurt so much? Compared to the child who was just called the parent, the first thing their father did when he came to school was to protect his own child, while her father couldn't help but slap him, regardless of right or wrong. There were other teachers around who seemed to have their eyes fixed on Nan Qiao, and this matter must soon be known to the whole school again. In the afternoon, Nan Qiao returned home from school with a swollen face like a bun. At this moment, San Gu was chatting and laughing with his stepmother He Qian, as close as a mother and son. And Gigi loves to eat this cake. I'm going to the hospital to see Gigi later, so I'll bring all these cakes to Gigi. Okay. He Qian smiled brightly as she heard the sound of the door closing and speculated that it was Nan Qiao who had returned. She deliberately asked in a warm voice, Nan Qiao is probably coming back soon, why don't you leave some for her? Gigi is recovering in the hospital, so it's okay to eat 2 less pieces. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. What I don't want, you don't deserve it either. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. What I don't want, you don't deserve it either. Speaking of Nan Qiao, his third brother Nan Hao frowned and replied, Nan Qiao doesn't like to eat. Let's give it to Gigi. It's because Ji is recuperating, that's why he needs to supplement more. As soon as the words fell, Nan Qiao walked in, glanced at the cake on the table, and quickly withdrew his gaze. Oh, who gave you a slap for doing something good? Nan Hao, holding a piece of bread in his mouth, gloated at the scar on Nan Qiao's face and asked. It's none of your business. Nan Qiao walked coldly by without stopping for a moment. Qiao Qiao, come and try Auntie's newly bought cake. He Qian affectionately called out to Nan Qiao and asked with a smile. Nan Qiao ignored it and went upstairs directly. Nan Hao bit the bread on his mouth fiercely, feeling depressed in his heart. He couldn't get up or down in one breath, and even after being beaten, he still pulled it like this. Who did the dead girl show to? Auntie, don't worry about her. Look at her attitude. She deserves being beaten. In the evening, Nan Qiao went home and also brought Nanzhi back. The family was chatting and laughing happily in the living room, especially Nanzhi didn't seem like someone who had just broken her leg. Nan Qiao went downstairs to pour water and drink. Just as she saw this scene, her smile was very sarcastic. The eldest and third brothers were actually sitting next to He Qian, and those who didn't know thought it was their biological mother and son. The relationship was so good. The second brother just went downstairs and saw this scene of Nan Qiao sitting next to her drinking water. He held a pear for a long time before throwing it to her. Nan Qiao looked at the pear in his hand and felt very strange. When was the second brother so kind that he didn't isolate himself with them and instead gave himself something to eat? Did he poison this pear? Who knew that this action happened to be seen by the older brother? The elder brother scolded with acid, if you don't even come down for dinner, you'll know how to eat snacks. Seeing Nanjin give Nan Qiao a pear, Nanzhi pondered in her heart, wondering if something had happened while she was not around. I saw Nanzhi act coquettishly from afar, twisting her body with her hands on her legs and saying, second brother Gigi also wants to eat a pear. Can you help Gigi pick it up? Second brother Nan hesitated for a moment, as if making a very difficult decision. What are you doing in a daze? Big brother Nanxian frowned and came over to pick it up, only to find it was already gone. My gaze naturally locked on the pear in Nan Qiao's hand. Nanzhi pursed her lips inexplicably, why didn't second brother give her a pear just now? But in an instant, she regained her radiant smile on her face, unable to conceal her regret. She looked at the pear in Nan Qiao's hand with a longing. It's okay, since it's already gone, let's give it to sister. It's okay if Gigi can't eat it. He Qian leaned towards Nanzhi and hugged her daughter. Gigi Guai, Mom will go buy it tomorrow. It's okay if she doesn't eat tonight. Nanzhi forced a smile and said, I know Mom, I don't know what's wrong. Since my leg was injured, I've been wanting to eat pears. I didn't mean to grab them from my sister. Mom, my legs hurt so much. Nanzhi hugged He Qian tightly, playing coquettish with her with a mix of crying. The older brother's gaze fell on the pear in Nan Qiao's hand, and Nan Qiao looked at him with determination. Nan Qiao's eyes were cold, as if mixed with ice shards. The girl's skin color is naturally white, and coupled with her bad complexion, she is so pale that she has no blood. There are still red marks left by the palm on the face, which are shocking to see. Those jet-black eyes stared at him like this, watching what kind of decision he would make. For some reason, Nanxian felt uncomfortable with that kind of gaze, as if he was about to break with himself. Nanxian said, let Gigi have Nanxiao's pear. She broke her leg because of you. Auntie will go buy it tomorrow, and you just ate it a day later. What's the point? The teeth in Nanxiao's lips couldn't help but clench, although he had already guessed that big brother would say so. But for some reason, she still felt heartbroken and struck a heavy blow on her bruised heart, so painful that she couldn't even breathe. Nanxiao didn't answer, and everyone looked at her, waiting for her answer. Sangu Nan Hao put down his snacks and climbed over from the sofa to snatch the pear from Nan Qiao's hand, but was avoided by Nan Qiao. South Qiao, who stood up, suddenly smiled, and the sudden smile puzzled several people. These days, asking her to give Nanzhi a hand is like taking her life, but why did she still laugh this time? Nan Qiao personally delivered the pear to Nanzhi. Nanzhi grinned her lips and revealed her teeth, reaching out to catch it. "Thank you, sister." Nan Qiao's nails had a crescent mark on the pear, and just as she was about to put it in Nanzhi's hand, Nan Qiao suddenly curled up one corner of her lips and said, "What you can take away is what I don't want. Why do you feel so proud that you took it from me?" Nanzhi and Nan Qiao were born from the same father, somewhat similar, except that she had a doll-like face, pure to the extreme, with every frown and smile pure and flawless. Nan Qiao really hates watching her smile. She laughs like this when she takes everything away from her. Nan Qiao suddenly hooked her hand, and the pear in her hand fell into the trash can in a parabolic trajectory. The thin and cool eyes were filled with a chill. "Even if I don't want it now, you don't deserve it." Nan Qiao. The whole family didn't expect Nan Qiao to do such a thing, and his father Nan Kong even raised his arm. This time, Nan Qiao avoided the slap and Nan Kong's hand fell into the air. This sudden change surprised everyone, and Nan Kong looked at her with incredulous eyes. "Do you want to hit me again? Do you think my mother would regret marrying you if she saw you treat me like this?" Nan Qiao sneered and turned back to the room. Nan Kong stood in the same place for a long time, unable to regain his senses, still immersed in Nan Qiao's words just now. At that time, Murong Yen was a famous beauty throughout the city. When she first met, her eyebrows, smiles, fingertips flicking her hair behind her ear, and her other hand folding over her qipao and sitting down were so elegant and charming. It was this glance that made Nan Kong unable to let go of her anymore. Unfortunately, in the end, husband. He Qian shook Nan Kong vigorously, probably thinking of the dead woman Murong Yen just now. Nan Kong was stunned and regained his composure, feeling a bit guilty in the face of He Qian's questioning gaze. Being able to marry the first beauty, Nan Kong was able to shine for a long time. Nan Hao felt ashamed for not grabbing the pear for Nanzhi and complained, "What's wrong with Nan Qiao tonight?" Nanzhi lowered her head and brewed a few tears. She pitifully said, "It's okay, I know my sister is unhappy. It's all Gigi's fault. Gigi shouldn't have fought against her sister. How can I blame you for this? Whether you cry or not, I'll turn around and scold her. Now she's becoming more and more rebellious." Nan Kong quickly comforted her. "Whether you cry or not, I'll give you my favorite snacks to eat." Third brother Nan Hao quickly returned to his room and came out holding a pile of snacks. "Be good and don't cry. If my brother teaches her a lesson for you, he will definitely make her apologize to you." Big brother Nan Xian touched her head and comforted her with warmth. Only the second brother Nan Jin remained sitting on the sofa motionless. "Nanzhi doesn't understand why. Although my second brother used to love her the most, now he turns a blind eye to her tears." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Second brother brings snacks and eats bad stomach. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Second brother brings snacks and eats bad stomach. At night, Nanzhi still felt uneasy in her heart. Later, she sat in a wheelchair and knocked on Nanjin's door by herself. Nanjin opened the door and saw Nanzhi, who was his beloved sister. He would be very happy to see her. The tenderness in her heart was lifted, and she crouched down and asked her gently, "What's wrong with Gigi? You miss second brother? Come in quickly." Nanjin pushed the wheelchair into the room and sat on the edge of the bed holding Nanzhi. When Nanzhi got up, she stumbled and fell onto Nanjin's body. "I'm sorry, brother, I hurt you. I'm such a little fool, I can't do such a little thing well." Nanjin hugged her in his arms and comforted her softly, "It's okay, Gigi is not stupid. My brother will always protect Gigi." As soon as these words were spoken, some images flashed through Nanjin's mind, causing him to snort uncontrollably due to a headache. "Brother, is that so? Nanzhi nervously hugged Nanjin and asked. Suddenly, Nanjin pushed her away. Having a better understanding, we still need to pay attention to some influences. The pure and flawless face of Nanzhi flashed through her mind, but an incredibly evil smile appeared. The scene of Nan Qiao huddled in a dilapidated small house, holding his arms trembling with cold and feeling helpless occasionally appeared in his mind. Nanzhi was pushed inexplicably. I don't understand why he suddenly pushed himself away when he was just fine. Brother, didn't we all hug like this before? Nanzhi pouted and coquettishly asked. Do you know what's going on here? If there's nothing, I'll take you back to your room. Nanjin showed a forced smile and took Nanzhi back to her wheelchair, taking her back. But brother. Successfully escorted Nanzhi back to his room, Nanjin passed by Nan Qiao's room and saw the locked door. For some reason, Nan Qiao's pitiful appearance always appeared before his eyes. Nanjin returned to his room with gloomy eyes, and soon he appeared at the door of Nan Qiao's room, carrying a bag of snacks. Hang the snack bag on the door handle. Listening to the commotion outside the door, Nan Qiao opened the door with confusion to take a look. But he found a bag of snacks hanging on his doorknob. Gollum, the sound of her stomach made Nan Qiao have to bring these food into the room. She didn't even have dinner, and now she's already hungry. Although I don't know who gave it to or for what purpose, she has to fill her stomach. In the morning, Nan Qiao put on her backpack and struggled to appear at the staircase. Passing through the living room, she casually picked up a box of milk. Seeing Nan Qiao's expression, Nanjin raised his eyebrows and said, "What's wrong with you? Didn't we send her food last night? Why is she still like this?" Nan Qiao supported the wall as she walked, pulling all night until she collapsed, her legs weak, and her dark circles almost reached her cheeks. I don't know who delivered an expired snack at my room door last night. Due to anger, Nan Qiao's voice increased by 2 points, but she felt it again and quickly threw her backpack into the bathroom. Nanjin hurriedly picked up a glass of milk and drank it vigorously, hiding his embarrassment. Has the snack expired? He rarely eats snacks. The snacks from last night were still from Nan Hao's place before. It seems like they have been here for quite some time. When Nan Qiao finished pulling it out, it seemed like time was running out. If she was late, the homeroom teacher should have caused trouble again. I can only pick up my backpack and run quickly. As soon as I left my house, I saw my second brother Nanjin riding his limited edition mountain off-road bike at the door. Nan Qiao glanced and ran away. Nanjin saw her running away from him like this, and even though she had already seen him, she didn't say hello to him. Nanjin's chest was depressed, and he stepped on the pedal and rushed out, far ahead of Nan Qiao. Nan Qiao tightened the strap of her backpack, feeling a sense of resentment in her heart. Show off your butt. She will also have it in the future. However, not long after walking, she saw Nanjin's car parked in front of her. Nan Qiao couldn't help but roll her eyes, and her stomach felt a sensation of diarrhea. She had to run faster. Once again, Nanjin watched as Nan Qiao ran past him. A sense of frustration surged in his heart. She greeted him and asked him to take her. Would he die? If he doesn't speak, he doesn't want to talk to that dead girl. Nan Qiao once again saw Nanjin rushing in front of her. Angered, she gritted her teeth tightly and picked up a stone on the ground before smashing his car. When Nan Qiao arrived at school, she was still late. Just as the homeroom teacher was about to reprimand Nan Qiao, she saw Nan Qiao jump over him and rush towards the direction of the bathroom. Nan Qiao was completely exhausted, lying on the wash basin, his face pale and weak, and his backpack was hanging on his arm, panting heavily. She shouldn't have eaten anything last night. She should have known that there wasn't even a good person in that family. At this moment, footsteps could be heard from the men's restroom, and a boy came out from inside. He raised his eyebrows and eyes slightly, looked at Nan Qiao, quickly restrained himself, washed his hands, and left in one go. Nan Qiao felt like she was struggling to open her eyes, and in a daze, she saw a pair of fair, slender, and well-defined hands being washed through by the water. The other person didn't give her a stingy look and left straight away. Nan Qiao reached out to grab his sleeve, but it fell empty. He shouted weakly, "Hui Yichen." The boy in front stopped and turned around to find that she had fainted. Hui Yichen frowned and pursed his lips tightly, as if he had encountered something difficult and conflicted. When Nan Qiao woke up again, she was in the infirmary, surrounded by the smell of disinfectant. There were 5 beds in the infirmary, and she was the only one here. There is still a drip on the back of the hand. The doctor and teacher returned from washing their hands and saw Nan Qiao walking. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is there anything else that's uncomfortable?" "No," Nan Qiao answered in confusion, then remembered her memories before fainting, so she fainted in the restroom. "Excuse me, teacher. Who sent me here?" The doctor replied, "It's a male classmate who brought you here and left." Nan Qiao remembered that the only person she had ever seen before fainting was Hui Yichen, which would make her feel so embarrassed that she could even carve out 1 acre and 3 cents with her fingertips. "Where's that boy?" Nan Qiao hurriedly looked around but didn't see anyone. The doctor gossiped and said with a smile, "That boy has already left. How could he be interested in him?" Nan Qiao's eyes widened with fear and he quickly waved his hand, No, I just want to thank him. There's nothing else." Sweat. The doctors in this clinic are probably too gossipy. The person who brought you here is a handsome little guy. Since you said it's not, then it's not. Although he said so, the smile on the face of the medical staff teacher remained ambiguous. After receiving the intravenous drip, Nan Qiao quickly fled from the medical room as if she didn't want to come again in the future. "But since someone has helped me, I can't justify not being grateful." Nan Qiao returned to the class after class, and there seemed to be something happening in the class, making a lot of noise and forming a group. After entering the classroom, Nan Qiao finally regained some of her blood color and instantly disappeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Nanzhi comes to school. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Nanzhi comes to school. Nanzhi, you finally came to school. I thought you wouldn't come again in the future. Nanzhi heard that her leg was broken. Do she still feel anything now? Did Nanzhi pull you over to block the flower pot at that time? Nan Qiao is so capable of doing this, he actually treats you like a meat shield. Nan Qiao listened to the people in the classroom, and every word she said, I defecated her. Now Nan Qiao knows a problem well. People who believe in you even if you don't say anything, but those who don't believe in you, no matter what you say, don't believe. Explaining is of no use at all. Seeing Nan Qiao come back, Nanzhi's face showed a fresh and pleasant smile like a lily. Everyone, please don't surround me anymore. Thank you all for caring about me, but at that time, I was voluntary. Please don't make things difficult for my sister anymore. But Nanzhi did not refute that it was Nan Qiao who treated her as a flesh shield. In the hearts of all students, it has become a default. Indeed, it was Nan Qiao who did it, and Nan Qiao was too ruthless. Everyone unconsciously moved away from Nan Qiao. Nanzhi, you're so brave. You still have to come to school, and you're helping Nan Qiao talk. The female classmate licked Nanzhi vigorously. Nanzhi is the daughter of the Nan family, and when compared to Nan Qiao, she is like heaven and earth. Everyone is an understanding person, and it will be 2 years for classmates. They have already thoroughly understood the family situation of each household. When Nanzhi went to school, she used to be with her third brother Nanhao, who would take a special car for transportation and envy others. Looking at Nan Qiao again, she walks to school on her own every day, and sometimes she can only be late. When she arrives tomorrow morning, she is sweating profusely and has a strong smell. No one wants to be her desk mate. Moreover, Nanzhi is still a top university student, while Nan Qiao is just in the middle of the rankings. Clear-eyed people know who to be friends with. Nan Qiao returned to her seat and lay down to rest. She was still very weak and had little strength all over. But Nanzhi had no intention of letting her go like this. A pitiful hand pulled the wheelchair to Nan Qiao's seat. Nanzhi's eyes were round and pure, and she asked, "Sister, where did you go this morning? Why didn't I even see you when I came?" Nan Qiao lay sickly on the table, feeling weak and unwilling to talk to her. If someone breaks their leg, they will remain silent for a long time. She's doing well and selling everywhere, afraid that others won't know if her leg is broken. Nan Qiao didn't answer Nanzhi, and the classmates in the classroom looked at each other, covering their mouths and whispering. What Nanzhi wants is this kind of effect. With a curl on her lips, she sincerely said, "It was my dad who sent me this morning. The teacher said you were late, and my dad was very angry. We should still be in the office now. Why don't you go to the office and apologize to the teacher and dad?" My classmate who had a good relationship with Nanzhi before, Qiao couldn't help it anymore. "Nanzhi, are you too kind? She treated you like that, and you still have to take care of her. Moreover, she doesn't understand at all. If it were me, I wouldn't care about her." Nanzhi turned her head and frowned, her nose slightly closed. "How could you say that, Qiao? She's my sister, isn't it natural to take care of her?" "What, it's always my sister who takes care of my younger sister. Where is there a sister who takes care of my older sister? What kind of sister is someone like her called?" said Qiao. Fighting against injustice. Nan Qiao felt a bit exhausted and just wanted to take a good rest on her own. However, she didn't know they were saying it wasn't enough and ran to her position next to her. She couldn't bear the noise and said, "It's so noisy. Nan Qiao, do you have a conscience? Gigi kindly reminded you that you still find it too noisy." Qiao was so angry that she had never seen such a shameless person before. "Gigi, let's go, ignore her." The dog bit LV Dongbin. Following closely behind was a group of people's agreement. Qiao pushed the wheelchair and left, but to her surprise, Nanzhi started crying. Listening to the sound of sobs, everyone hurriedly comforted Nanzhi. "We don't talk to her, whether we know or not to cry. She's too ignorant, don't cry if you know. It's all Nan Qiao's fault. She's like a disaster, always able to make Gigi cry. It's so annoying." Nan Qiao stood up with the table propped up, glaring angrily in the direction of Nanzhi, her face covered in frost. "I scolded her. What makes her cry?" "That's because." Some people defended Nanzhi, but halfway through the defense, they didn't speak out. It seems like just now, Nan Qiao just said a word of noise and didn't blame Nanzhi much, did she? Nan Qiao couldn't bear their atmosphere and left the classroom. Being with Nanzhi, the air became oppressive, and she was worried that she would lose control of her temper later and would go up and strangle Nanzhi to death. The teaching building of number 3 middle school is not separated from the teacher building, and the 3 classrooms next to class 1 are the office of the homeroom teacher. When Nan Qiao came out, she happened to bump into Nan Kong and her homeroom teacher talking in the hallway. "So if our family knows, we can rely on the teacher. If someone bullies her, please ask the teacher to be more careful." Nan Kong's attitude seemed devout. The homeroom teacher greeted her with a smile and said, "Don't worry, I will watch Nanzhi more and definitely not let her be bullied. On the other hand, Nan Qiao will still make your parents worry a lot." As soon as Nan Qiao was mentioned, Nan Kong's face immediately changed and he looked fierce. "Don't worry, if that dead girl does anything bad at school, you can call me and I'll take care of her." Just as I finished speaking, I saw Nan Qiao sitting next to me for an unknown amount of time and heard a lot of their conversation. Nan Kong and the head teacher were a little guilty at the same time, but Nan Kong took the initiative. "Where did you go in the morning? You were actually late. Your teacher said you ran away when you saw him, clearly skipping class. You're so disrespectful." Nan Kong's reprimand was not subdued. It was the second class in the morning, so according to the school's regulations, the class time was 20 minutes. There were many passing students now, and as soon as everyone heard someone being reprimanded, they quickly came out to take a look. Nan Qiao didn't care about Nan Qiao's face at all and publicly scolded her. Nan Qiao looked at him coldly like that, with no ripples in his dark eyes. "I'm talking to you, what kind of disobedient look are you giving?" Nan Qiao felt his dignity being provoked and immediately remembered what happened last night. He raised his hand and slapped Nan Qiao again. At the same time, a classmate suddenly walked behind Nan Qiao. His sudden appearance caught Nan Qiao off guard and almost hit him. "Could you please make way for the passage, parent?" Hui Chen seemed to carry his homework to the teacher's office, holding a large stack of exercise books, and surprisingly passed directly between Nan Qiao and Nan Qiao. Nan Qiao wanted to curse, but at the same time, he considered his face and swallowed it. Nan Qiao looked at Hui Chen, who always carried a childish aura during his youth. He wore a blue school uniform, washed white sneakers, and had a cold complexion. He even gave Nan Qiao a glance, as if they had never seen each other before. Arrogantly, he walked past them and straight into the office. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Being thrown out by a big boss carrying a collar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Being thrown out by a big boss carrying a collar after school, Nan Qiao used her scarce pocket money to buy some fruits and went to the hospital where Nanzhi was previously hospitalized. I waited for a while before seeing Hui Chen coming. When Hui Chen arrived, he happened to see the scene of Nan Qiao chatting and laughing with his mother at Little Apple. Hui Chen frowned at her first, then became extremely unhappy and said, "Why are you here?" "I'm just here to see my aunt, and by the way, thank you for your help this morning." Nan Qiao handed him an apple and said, "Do you want to eat it?" Hui Chen immediately picked up what Nan Qiao had brought and even picked up Nan Qiao's backpack, including grabbing Nan Qiao's collar and carrying it out. "Let's go." In front of his mother, Hui Chen didn't roll the word. The young Qingjuan's face was full of alienation and disgust. Why did she know her mother was here? No matter what his purpose is, he doesn't need her to be grateful. "Don't be so indifferent, I really came to appreciate you." Although he is still a teenager, Hui Chen is almost 1.8 meters old now, and Nan Qiao is simply effortless. "Xiaoyi, don't treat your classmates like this." Hui Chen's mother was feeling weak and her voice was low, and she had more than enough energy to stop her. "Mom, don't worry, I'll go out and talk to her for a while." Hui Chen held Nan Qiao in his hand, and Nan Qiao stared innocently with big eyes. He grew up eating national food. Why did he grow so fast? Hui Chen put Nan Qiao outside the door in disgust and said, "I don't need you to be grateful. If it weren't for the surveillance there, I wouldn't have cared about your life and death. If we don't help her, she will die there. When we retrieve surveillance footage, she will be discovered by everyone and will be flooded by the crowd." He is not afraid, but he is afraid of trouble. Nan Qiao remained silent for 2 seconds, "So that's the truth, right? Sure enough, even big shots can't do good things. Anyway, thank you for helping me, and if it weren't for you in the afternoon, would have been beaten. Let's get to know each other. My name is Nan Qiao." Nan Qiao knows that Hui Chen is not easy to approach, but she still wants to leave an impression in his eyes as much as possible so that we can discuss cooperation in the future. "I don't know what you're talking about, hurry up and get out of here. Don't dirty my eyes. If you come to see my mother again, I'll beat a woman." The handsome young man's face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost, and his eyes were dyed with crimson, wild and unrestrained. The boy's fierce threat did not scare Nan Qiao, but instead aroused his interest. A big shot is truly a big shot, it's just that he has a personality. During his youth, Hui Chen had already laid the foundation for his future gloomy temperament. Later, after his mother's death, Hui Chen was free from ties and acted ruthlessly and decisively. The boy slammed the door and completely isolated Nan Qiao outside. Nan Qiao sucked his nose and held an apple that had been half peeled in his hand. He reluctantly took a bite before realizing that his fingertip had been cut open. It was left by Hui Chen when he forcefully pulled himself just now. Stuffing all the fruits into her backpack, Nan Qiao leisurely went home and had something to eat when she was hungry at night. In the ward, Hui Chen took out the apple he had bought from a small cabinet and peeled it for his mother. While searching for a knife, he found it lying on the ground. He lowered his head and picked it up, only to find blood stains on it. Hui Chen hesitated for a moment and immediately resumed his usual routine, taking a knife to clean. "Xiaoyi, it's the first time in all these years that your classmates have come to see me. How could you be so impolite?" "Mom, I don't know her." Hui Chen didn't know why he had to help her this morning. Perhaps it was her unyielding gaze when she was beaten in the director's office before, or perhaps there was a hint of sympathy for the same illness. "But this does not mean that I have any connection with her. Why are you talking like this? Qiao has already told me that you helped her, and she came to thank you." Cough 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 cough. Hui's mother coughed incessantly before finishing a sentence, almost unable to catch her breath. Hui Chen quickly went over and patted her back with ease. "Mom, I know what I'm doing, so don't worry. She won't come in the future," Hui Chen said thoughtfully. On the way home, Nanzhi's special car passed by the standing water next to her, splashing Nan Qiao with sewage. Nan Qiao was so angry that he grabbed a stone from the ground and smashed it over. Sitting on the roadside chair, Nan Qiao stared at the sky in a daze. She seemed to have nowhere to go and didn't want to go back to that oppressive home. When in a daze, Nan Qiao felt as if a familiar figure had passed in front of him. Without her concentration, that person was actually Hui Chen. What is Hui Chen going to do at this time? Anyway, there were countless of them. Nan Qiao followed up and then went to the entrance of a coffee shop. Nan Qiao watched Hui Chen enter, and in no time, he came out, changing into a new outfit and wearing an apron. Originally, this is the place where Hui Chen works part-time. If Nan Qiao had thought about it, it seemed that she should also find a part-time job. Given the current situation, it is absolutely impossible for her to ask Nan Kong for money. After careful consideration, Nan Qiao stepped into the coffee shop. "Boss, do you still hire part-time students?" "I can do anything." The boss looked at her and noticed that she was a delicate and imposing girl. Although she was good-looking, she didn't look like she could work. "Waiter, please tidy up this place," a customer called out. Nan Qiao pulled a handkerchief from the side and went away. Although he was not wearing work clothes, he was agile and readily available to work, making him a skilled worker. Seeing this scene, the boss finally felt relieved and took advantage of Nan Qiao's return to put the cup, saying, "You can continue working. I'll give you 100 yuan a day to pack dinner from 6.00 to 10.00. "Thank you, boss." Nan Qiao was extremely happy and worked even harder. When Hui Chen saw the figure of Nan Qiao appearing here, he couldn't help but project an obvious fierce color in his eyes. This person has come here with herself. What exactly does she want to do? Hui Chen would never take the initiative to talk to Nan Qiao. He only waited for Nan Qiao to find him to talk, but surprisingly, Nan Qiao didn't say a word to him for a whole 4 hours. Just when the girl finished work at night, she looked up and under the dim light, her sparkling eyes were like stars. "Hui Chen, be careful on the way home, good night," she said. The girl received today's 100 yuan and bounced back home without waiting for a response. Hui Chen's already raised eyebrows gradually lowered, his head bowed and his eyes sank. He hesitated for a moment before turning and leaving. After Nan Qiao returned home, it was already very late. According to family customs, everyone had already gone to bed, but today was different. There was actually someone waiting for her. As soon as Nan Kong saw Nan Qiao returning home at this moment, his anger surged and his tone gradually became angry. Did you smash Gigi's car with a stone? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Betting with Teachers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Betting with Teachers. Yes. Bastard, you really don't take care of your family. I don't know how expensive the oil, salt, firewood, and rice are. Do you know how big a pit you smashed that car into? The repair cost alone is tens of thousands. And then Nan Qiao raised an eyebrow and looked at him. What Nan Kong hates the most is that Nan Qiao talks to him in such a cold and aloof manner, thinking he's a life and death enemy. Look at your unrepentant appearance. Since you're so arrogant, then confiscate your pocket money. I'll see if you know it's not easy to make money in the future. Did you finish speaking? After speaking, I went upstairs. Nan Qiao raised her eyes and yawned as she went upstairs. He Qian quickly stood up and stopped Nan Qiao from speaking with a friendly expression. How could you treat Nan Qiao like this, husband? After all, it's a girl's family and she's a bit picky about food on weekdays. If you confiscate all her pocket money and starve the child, what should you do? It's because she only knows how to eat junk food all day long that she has to confiscate her pocket money even more. I see she will always come back to eat dishonestly in the future. Nan Qiao avoided He Qian's contact with annoyance and left a sentence. I won't come back for dinner in the future. Then he went upstairs, leaving Nan Kong furious downstairs. Upstairs, the second brother Nanjin asked her with a calm gaze, "Where have you been?" Nan Qiao's face turned cold and he said, "What does it have to do with you? Just take care of your Gigi sister." Nanjin bit her back teeth. Why does she just owe so much? Her words are prickly. Nanzhi naturally knew that Nan Qiao came back very late. She usually goes to bed and has to rest at 10 o'clock, but now it's already over 10 o'clock. It's hard to believe that Nan Qiao just came back and went somewhere to fool around. System, where did Nan Qiao go today? Nanzhi directly asked the system, as the universal system knows everything. She went to work part-time. The system quickly gave Nanzhi the answer she wanted to know. But when Nanzhi heard this answer, she was particularly surprised. Are you saying that the young lady who only knows how to be stubborn went to work part-time? Nanzhi thought she had heard it wrong. I've seen you for a long time. It would have been impossible for Nan Qiao to work in the past. I don't know what exactly drove Nan Qiao crazy. But what my father hates the most is when someone else does something that insults our family, especially going to work in some unremarkable places. Nanji's bright and clean eyes sparkled with a smile, filled with pride. There's a good show to watch. There is a lot of academic work in the third year of high school, and the homework assigned by the teacher is also piled up. It took Nan Qiao a lot of time just to finish these assignments, and by the time the lights were turned off, it was already 1 o'clock in the middle of the night. Nan Qiao rubbed her sore neck and will start investigating the flower pot at school tomorrow. Although it was only briefly mentioned in the original text, Nan Qiao believes that this matter must be related to Nanzhi. The next morning, Nan Qiao went to the breakfast shop outside and casually bought something to cushion her stomach. When Nanzhi and Nanjin woke up, Nan Qiao had already left. Nan Qiao, who arrived at school early and still had a piece of bread in her mouth, arrived on the 6th floor. For ordinary people, the 6th floor is already very high. From this place, people are only about the size of fists. If a flower pot is smashed, it will indeed make a person's head open. However, in the past, flower pots were all placed in the hallway, but now all flower pots are explicitly prohibited from being placed by the principal. The fence is 1.2 meters high, so there is no chance for the flower pot to fall unless someone intentionally smashes it down. Nan Qiao thought to himself and wished for the scene at that time. He came to the fence empty-handed, holding up something, and then simulated throwing it down. In the morning, everyone began to arrive at the classroom one by one. The students on the 6th floor were surprised to see Nan Qiao's appearance, because Nan Qiao's classroom was on the 3rd floor and usually did not come to the 6th floor, let alone the scene of the crime. However, Nan Qiao believes that if someone deliberately does this, no one should have seen it. Looking up at the top left corner, there is a surveillance camera. You can perfectly capture the movements here, including the flower pots in the hallway. After the incident in the previous life, no one thought about investigating the matter, and the school was hastily resolved. It was said that a classmate accidentally placed a flower pot on the railing while cleaning, but Nan Qiao was unlucky, which was why she was smashed. Since that's the case, she needs to see what the surveillance is all about. It's time for morning classes, and Nan Qiao can only return to class. Seeing that Nan Qiao finally arrived on time today, the homeroom teacher's face improved a bit. After the morning class ended, Nan Qiao chased the homeroom teacher to the office. "Teacher, I want to check what happened on that day, as I was also one of the victims." The homeroom teacher stared at Nan Qiao and couldn't help but frown. "Nan Qiao, I know you wanted to investigate the ins and outs of this matter, but I am very responsible to tell you that our teacher and your parents have already watched the video, which is an accident." "I don't believe it, I have to look at it myself." Nan Qiao's gaze was firm, and she didn't believe that any clues could be found. "Nan Qiao, you don't trust the teacher or your parents. The school surveillance is not something you can just watch if you want. I advise you to focus all your attention on the mountain of learning and not think about what you have or not." The homeroom teacher was a bit angry, with a serious expression on her face. "Teacher, I must see for myself." Nan Qiao's cold lips curled in a curve. "I finally know why your grades are not good. All your thoughts have been focused on these unprofessional things, where is there any focus on learning? Look at how many points you only scored in your last monthly exam." The homeroom teacher chuckled sarcastically. The girl's eyes were filled with a thin chill. A teacher's poor grades do not necessarily mean that a student's mind is not right. "Oh, don't you want to watch the video?" "Alright, as long as your total score in the 3 subjects next week exceeds 390, I'll show it to you." The homeroom teacher opened a thermos and took a sip of goji berry tea inside, deliberately making things difficult. "Okay, it's a deal. If I can do it, the teacher will apologize to me." Nan Qiao responded, not only to prove herself, but also to make the homeroom teacher, who looked down on hanging students, apologize. "It's a deal, if you can't do it, leave the school." The homeroom teacher watched as Nan Qiao left the office with a fierce aura, his eyes filled with ridicule. Last time, Nan Qiao ranked 5th from the bottom of her class in the exam, and the conditions he offered were equivalent, so she was required to score no less than 130 points in each subject, which even top students may not be able to achieve. Nan Qiao is really shameless, he just waited to see Nan Qiao get out of school. Hui Chen didn't understand why he heard Nan Qiao and the teachers bet again. Hui Chen's indifferent expression remained unchanged as he passed by Nan Qiao, pretending that he had not heard anything. Nan Qiao was a bit surprised to see Hui Chen. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Accusing her of stealing money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Accusing her of stealing money. Recently, Nan Qiao has been studying hard and has not bothered to get close to Hui Chen. Apart from meeting a few times while working, she has had no other contact. The morning exercise ended that day, and the atmosphere when Nan Qiao returned to the classroom was a bit off. As soon as everyone saw her, it was obvious that her discussion voice had decreased a lot. The classmates unconsciously took a few steps back to avoid her. Nan Qiao had long been accustomed to their treatment, calmly returning to his seat. At this moment, a girl was about to rush out and try to argue with Nan Qiao, but Nanzhi grabbed her hand and shook her head at the other person. There seems to be a pleading in the eyes. Nan Qiao narrowed her eyes and withdrew her remaining light, focusing on her studies. At this moment, Qiao finally couldn't hold back and rushed up to find Nan Qiao to reason. "Nan Qiao, Gigi said she lost 500 yuan. This 500 yuan was for her father to go for a follow-up visit. Have you seen it? Nan Qiao's beautiful eyes blinked and he coldly replied, no. Upon hearing this, Nanzhi's eyes turned red. She lowered her head and grabbed Qiu's hand, appearing particularly powerless. The girl, who was as fresh and beautiful as a lily, suddenly dimmed, making one feel pity. Qiu suddenly became even angrier and took out 5 bright red grandpa Mao. Nan Qiao, are you okay to say no? We have already found 500 yuan in your bag. Now that your pocket money has been stopped at home, where did you get this 500 yuan? Nan Qiao glanced at his backpack, his gaze instantly fell silent, and the air around him seemed to be several degrees below. You moved my backpack without my consent, Nan Qiao used a declarative sentence. And Nan Qiao has already confirmed that the 500 yuan in Qiu's hand is his own. What does my money have to do with you guys? Nan Qiao frowned slightly, and her eyes were filled with a hint of confusion. She remembers that such a thing didn't seem to happen in her previous life. Qiu was infuriated and laughed at. Nan Qiao was the only one who stole something with conclusive evidence and even refused to admit it. The class bell rang, and everyone could only go back to class. As soon as the teacher entered the classroom, Qiu raised her hand and stood up, saying, "Teacher, there is a thief in our class." Nan Qiao stole 500 yuan from Nanzhi's father who showed her legs. This class is a Chinese class, and the Chinese teacher is not their homeroom teacher. They don't want to worry about this kind of thing, so they said, let's talk about these things after class. Let's have a good class now. Nan Qiao checked her backpack and found that she had not lost anything except for the 500 yuan. Fortunately, she didn't lose anything that was placed in the middle of her backpack. It's just that things are flipped over in a mess. During this class, Nan Qiao seemed absent-minded and kept her head down, not knowing what she was writing, drawing, or anything else. The Chinese teacher was also too lazy to bother with such a poor student like her. Shaking his head helplessly. As soon as the bell rang for the end of class, the Chinese teacher quickly put away his things and said, "You guys come to the office with me." Returning to the office, the Chinese teacher explained the difficult situation to the homeroom teacher and handed it over to the homeroom teacher to handle. One is Nanzhi, the other is Nan Qiao. Why are these two people again? I already know about you two. Since you are sisters, you must notify your parents about this. The head teacher all felt headache. Really, why do these sisters always have problems? But Nan Qiao just made a bet with the homeroom teacher, and of course, the homeroom teacher didn't have a good face towards Nan Qiao. In fact, she had already taken Nanzhi's side from her heart. If the teacher doesn't mind, don't bother everyone. I think my sister should also have an urgent need to take my money, otherwise how could she do so? She also has her own heart. Nanzhi looked at Nan Qiao's sisters affectionately from her wheelchair. Seeing Nanzhi say this, the homeroom teacher nodded in praise and thought of others everywhere, which is what makes a good student. However, Nan Qiao felt uncomfortable after hearing this, with a slightly irritable tone. I said this is my own money, not yours, she said. Nanzhi hesitated to speak, nodding and bowing her head, her nose slightly red, and she entrusted Chu Baba. Please parents, that's the decision. You can come to me again at noon. The homeroom teacher disliked Nan Qiao's tough attitude, as if someone had wronged her. Returning to the class, everyone gathered around to inquire about the results, showing their concern for Nanzhi, except for Nan Qiao, who was ignored. Faced with everyone's concern, Nanzhi lowered her eyebrows and said, "Thank you for your concern. It's just that the homeroom teacher said they want to invite parents, so we don't know the outcome yet." The pink lip was licked wet. Nanzhi's eyes were so clean and pure. She said softly, "No matter what the final result is, I won't blame you, sister. After all, we are sisters." Nan Qiao sneered wryly, "No need, I believe that evil does not overpower right, and my mother only has my daughter." Nan Qiao said that Nanzhi's eyes turned red and she was about to cry again. Noon is the break time, but the students in Class 2 are particularly excited because everyone is eager to know what the final result is. It's better to punish Nan Qiao severely. In the office, Nan Kang and He Qian both came, one taking good care of their daughter while the other listened to the teacher's words and cast a cold light towards Nan Qiao. After finally understanding the situation, Nan Kang walked up to Nan Qiao with a fierce aura and said, "I ask you, you said that the 500 yuan is yours, and your pocket money has already been stopped at home. Where did you get so much money from?" "I earned it by working on my own," Nan Qiao said coldly with a raised eyebrow. However, the more intense anger greeted her. "Don't I know what kind of person you are? A spoiled young lady like you would go out to make money, what would you do? Even if your family asked you to hold a plate, it would break it. Who dares to take you?" Nan Kang angrily spat at Nan Qiao, her saliva almost splashing on her face. She frowned and took a step back. All right, don't scold her anymore. Gigi's money is Qiao Qiao's money. If she needs it, she can take it. There's nothing to scold. The teacher has caused you trouble, but it's just a misunderstanding." He Qian smiled and made up the situation, then turned to Nan Qiao and said, "If Qiao Qiao is short of money in the future, come find Auntie. Auntie will definitely help Qiao Qiao." As soon as He Qian spoke, the teachers in the office couldn't help but marvel at how kind He Qian is to Nan Qiao, even though she is a stepmother. Nan Kang was furious and said, "You're not allowed to give it. If you don't eat dinner, you'll buy snacks. You're used to it." The student eavesdropping at the door heard this sentence and quickly ran away to go back to the class to promote it. "I heard it. It turned out that Nan Qiao stole money to buy snacks, and his father even said she doesn't eat at home. This is too much, isn't it? It's just money for Gigi's legs." That's right, Nan Qiao is so outrageous. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Nan Qiao getting beaten. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Nan Qiao getting beaten. I didn't expect Nan Qiao to be such a person. I used to think she was an honest person when I saw her pretty and beautiful. She really went blind on that face. Che, who wouldn't know that you speak by looking at your face? Qiao sneered coldly. Some boys just have no brains to fall in love with someone who looks good, without considering their character at all. The boy who was scolded didn't have much to say, he just scratched his head and looked very embarrassed. Outside the door, Hui Chen was just passing by Class 2, but he never expected to hear such a thing. However, the expression on the boy's face remained unchanged, as if he had not heard anything at all. In my mind, I couldn't help but think of Nan Qiao's clumsy hands and feet when he helped in the store these past few days, and it didn't look like what they said. Hui Chen went to the office to hand in his homework when he saw Nan Qiao and her parents arguing. Fortunately, you said you went to work and didn't even see if anyone wanted you. Nan Kang's words were very unpleasant, with a hint of disgust in them. Seeing Hui Chen coming, Nan Qiao just narrowed her eyes and said, "If you don't believe me, then forget it." Hui Chen was very surprised. At the moment when Nan Qiao looked at him just now, he thought Nan Qiao was going to ask him to testify for her. Who knew that in the end, she didn't say anything. Hui Chen's clear and rebellious eyebrows and eyes concealed the ripples in his eyes. Since Nan Qiao didn't say anything, he naturally wouldn't mention it. Turn around and leave the office. I work in a coffee shop, and that 500 yuan was saved by myself. You can check it yourself, but I don't believe it. Mr. Nan won't be able to find it. Nan Qiao's cold gaze met Nan Kang's eyes. Nan Kang actually saw a hint of mockery from inside. Since Nan Qiao has spoken words of confrontation, he must be able to prove his innocence. It seems that the person who took Nanzhi money is really not Nan Qiao. At this moment, everyone is very embarrassed because they all agreed earlier that it was Nan Qiao who did it. Nanzhi clenched her fist as she noticed that the atmosphere was not right. What's wrong with Nan Qiao? Didn't she used to be bad at speaking, stubborn, and never explain? Nanzhi spoke in a panic. It seems that everyone misunderstood my sister. Don't be angry, sister. I am very happy that you can take on a part-time job, but working in a coffee shop is not dignified. Nan Qiao had just felt a bit embarrassed because he had misunderstood his daughter. Now, hearing Nanzhi's words, his deep anger seemed to have found a breakthrough. You actually went to work in such a dishonest place like a coffee shop. You're really losing face with your whole family. If someone finds out that my daughter from Nan Qiao is still working in the coffee shop, what would they think of me? When Nan Qiao spoke, he was very vicious, like a fierce wolf, wishing to swallow Nan Qiao alive. At this moment, He Qian also said gently, Qiao, this is your fault. You should quit your job. Although you know you have made money and your aunt is happy for you, let others know that your father's face is not good either. Nan Qiao didn't take He Qian seriously at all, and her cold eyes filled with coldness only looked at Nan Qiao, questioning her in a voice. What's wrong with the coffee shop? What's a no 3 no 4 place? How can I make money on my own and not be seen in public? Mr. Nan, do you remember working in the kitchen before you married my mother? Nan Qiao was poked at the last thing he wanted to mention, and Nan Qiao still had a tendency to continue talking. Nan Qiao was furious and raised his hand to slap Nan Qiao in the face, stopping her from continuing to speak. This slap carried 10 out of 10 anger, making Nan Qiao almost unable to stand, tears streaming down her face, and a hint of crimson slowly flowing from the corner of her mouth. No one expected this slap to be so severe. The teachers were frightened. Nanzhi and He Qian were also shocked and they saw it, and then felt very pleased in their hearts. Good fight. Nan Qiao hasn't been beaten for too long. Nan Qiao tugged at the corner of his mouth in pain, reached out to touch it, and the crimson color on his fingertips was particularly eye-catching. A pair of deep, cold pond-like pupils were mixed with ice debris. Is that how you become a father? Nan Qiao doesn't really care about his father anymore, but the term father is particularly useful in front of everyone at this time. The homeroom teacher couldn't stop watching this scene. Mr. Nan, you can't beat the child like this. What if this slap causes an accident to the child? She's just in a rebellious period and shouldn't be beaten so hard. We don't advocate using force either. Nan Qiao snorted in his nose and said, she has rough skin and thick flesh, and even a few slaps won't hurt her. But fortunately, Nan Qiao didn't continue playing. The homeroom teacher saw that the atmosphere was not good and pushed Nan Qiao towards the door, gesturing for Nan Qiao to leave the office. If we continue to fight like this, it will be enough. Why become a father? Even if the child makes a mistake, they wouldn't have to take such a heavy blow, right? Nan Qiao, have you ever felt uncomfortable? If so, please go to the medical room in a timely manner. Nan Qiao nodded at the homeroom teacher and left this place of right and wrong. Nanzhi raised her eyebrows and raised her expression. Even though she did not blame Nan Qiao for stealing money, this slap was enough to make Nan Qiao hold a grudge for a long time. Father-daughter separation. Next, there are still a few brothers left. Nan Qiao returned to the class, and when everyone saw Nan Qiao's face, they dared not speak. They just choked up and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. What exactly happened in the office? The news of Nan Qiao being beaten quickly spread, and most people naturally felt happy and deserved it. People like Nan Qiao are not worthy to be in the same school as them. In the afternoon, when Hui Chen went to work and saw Nan Qiao with a huge palm print on his face, he was also shocked. The girl's skin is naturally soft and tender, with a touch of powder, smooth like a peeled egg, radiant and fair. But now one side of the face is covered with a palm print. The purple-red palm print seems to be stuck on the girl's face, which is shocking. Her mouth is still slightly swollen, which was caused by being hit in the face and biting her lips. As he laid down his belongings in the miscellaneous room with Nan Qiao, Hui Chen's throat slid and then asked. Why didn't you let me testify for you at that time? Nan Qiao fell silent for a moment, trying to raise the corner of her mouth, and her gaze softened. Aren't you the most afraid of others bothering you? However, because one corner of the mouth was already swollen and could not be raised, it seemed a bit comical. Hui Yichen's dark and deep eyes narrowed slightly, but she could see her personality clearly in one go. Replacing her work apron, Nan Qiao looked at Hui Yichen calmly and said, "Besides, those who believe in you will always believe in you. Those who don't believe in you, even if they clarify it for a while, there will still be millions of ways to pour dirty water at you." The girl's sincere dear eyes sparkled with scattered light. Don't let down those who believe in you, don't linger on those who let down you. Some words I want to say to everyone. First of all, I declare. This is a mindless and refreshing article. The author does not have a brain. If you don't like it, please take a detour. Many people like to slap their faces right after being reborn, but in my philosophy, I don't think a single sentence's description can make everyone feel the helplessness and injustice of the female lead, so I have laid so much groundwork ahead. I hope my readers can empathize and understand why the female protagonist wants to do the following things. Because there is sadness and sadness, the retaliation and slapping in the face afterwards will make one feel happy. Instead of an ordinary sentence, the female protagonist was tortured to death in her previous life, so when she comes back in this life, she has to kill the other person to vent her anger. I don't want to write about revenge like this. And the reason why she is now holding back is because the female protagonist doesn't want to startle the snake. If she wants to break away from the Nan family as soon as she comes back, the Nan family's mother and daughter will be wary and definitely won't let go. The second point is that the life of the female protagonist is well written, and once changes occur, it will cause a series of effects. She just doesn't want to have unnecessary details. If you don't like my writing style, you can just exit this book. Thank you for watching, and I apologize for wasting your valuable time. Welcome everyone to comment more. Good comments will be accepted. End of this chapter.